Hello, and my name is Pete Brown, and on behalf of the Elections Committee, I'd like to introduce you to one of our candidates for the Board of Directors. Welcome, Ben Breaux.
Well,
How you doing today?
Thank you, bud. I'm doing well.
Good. Well,
Trying to stay cool.
there you go. And in this heat, it's going to be even worse next week, but what the heck. Hey, Ben, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, let's see. I've been a member of Lake of the Woods since 1998, where we were weekenders up until 2020. Yeah. I'm married. My wife, Anita, married 32 years, but we have no children.
It's okay.
And so that's it. Retired Navy officer, retired civil servant, worked in industry, 40 years experience, analysis, solution development, delivery, and trying to get things done.
Well, very good. Well, thank you for stepping up and running for the Board of Directors. We have a list of questions here that the Elections Committee has prepared, and you've seen copies of those, so we'll kind of run through theirs. And so speak up so everybody can hear you. And I guess, first of all, are any committees or clubs here in the lake that you've been involved with?
I've been on the M&E committee for the last little over 2 years. I've been the vice chair of the committee a little over a year. And in that vein, I've also been participating in the Lakes Management Improvement Group, the Main Gate Working Group. I was the M&E Committee's author for the 2022 land use study.
Okay.
And various other. I'm also the liaison to the Lakes Committee for an M&E Committee, and working with Jack Simons to basically generating NAIRs for various improvements we think should be considered for the future of the lake.
Very good. Can you give us maybe some examples of your management skills over the course of your career and or clubs?
Well, that's a good question. But my most recent memory examples. When I was a manager, I had several different sites, several contracts, and about 20 to 25 people, depending on what the tasks or what contracts were going on. And at one of my rounds, I got a whiff that there might be a toxic leader situation going on. I wasn't sure. So I went back to my office. I said, let's go take a look. One, do I have any candidates that could possibly fill this position if I need to replace somebody? Two, what does the contract say about replacing key personnel? What are my conditions and restrictions? And then when I briefed my boss, said, this is what I think is going on. I'm going back out to the site to verify that. And then I will let you know. But I told him what I've done so far. He said, good. And then he also recommended I contact our HR guys and talk about personal improvement plans. So I worked on that in my mind driving over to the site. So I got to the site, and lo and behold, I verified it was a toxic leadership situation developing. And in those situations, I need to get nipped in the bud fast because I'm going to lose people. I'm going to lose that contract, which was pretty important to us at that time because that was carrying a lot of the financial targets that our group was supposed to make. So verified it, said, okay. I stepped up, said, pull the guy off the site. I actually acted as a site lead for about 2 weeks until I get a qualified guy interviewed with the group. The customer, he's satisfied, met all requirements, and he moved on. But in those situations, you have to act fast where it just cascades. It just gets worse.
Okay.
So,
good example. So one of the questions that the Elections Committee came up with, how would you go about interacting with our members, getting ideas and opinions?
But I'm a big fan of management by walking around. I mean, I don't think you have to engage with the leadership, you have to engage with the management, and you may even have to start talking to some of the employees if you get a chance in an official capacity. But my plan was to basically go to the fairways, sit down, maybe it's wear my committee badge or my membership board badge, say, I'm here, take a shot at me, go to the clubhouse, eat dinner, maybe wander around, engage some of the guests, wander through various sections, primarily just to keep an eye on what the conditions are in the group, so I can report back. I was over here and say, X613, I noticed this and this. We want to task the manager to go and task his staff to go look at it, and those kind of things. And that's something that got feed into me early as my Navy career. You can't sit in your stateroom. You have to get out in your spaces to see what's going on.
Now, getting ready to volunteer for a job. Again, thank you for volunteering to run for this. They say it's maybe 15 to 40 hours a week, and I think that 15 hours, from my experience, is probably a little bit on the low side. You prepared for that kind of time commitment, and your wife as well?
My view is this is the kind of position, is what you make of it. You can do as much or as little as you think you can get away with. I am prepared to, whatever the tasking is, to basically do it full time. I checked with the boss and my wife, and she said, it's okay, you can do it, but I also have to recognize that all the stuff that I do for her, I may not have time to do for her. Like I drive her to all those doctor's appointments. I do most of the cooking in the house. And I drive her primarily because the car we have, she's not comfortable driving with it. I even we got a different car that she picked out so she can drive herself where we eat. I think we're okay. The only wrinkle is we tend to spend 2 months in Puerto Rico during the winter. Smart move to get out. That's a cool weather. I'm not sure I'll be able to do that, or I may have to just send her off by herself and do what she do, a week at a time, so I can still stay around. But we still can do some remote stuff.
Well, you've obviously given it some good thought. One of the next things that came up, social media. We have an official Lake of the Woods page on Facebook, but there are 4 or 5 other social media platforms. Sometimes there's discourse on them. Sometimes there's good stuff, a lot of bad stuff. For you, what do you think are some of our opportunities with social media?
Well, with social media, I've 2 sayings. You don't want to wrestle with a pig in the mud because you get dirty, and the pig likes it. The other one's saying, attributed to Charles Luckman, was the problem with America, there's too many wide open spaces surrounded by teeth. Like everybody's got an opinion, and social media allows them the chance to vent. That being said, there's a threat and an opportunity. If you get caught behind an issue, you're never going to catch up. So, and then we were discussing with the new communications manager, they have a strategy to try to get out ahead of issues and basically try to get most of the pain points alleviated before something goes live, which is a good strategy. But that being said, we must never shade the truth. We must always be honest in social media. We cannot spin a tale, because once we lose the audience, we will never get them back.
Okay, very good point. All members of the board of directors have a fiduciary responsibility to the association. Are there any things where you could envision a conflict with something in your...
I can't really envision a conflict. I don't really respond to pressure. When I was in Navy, I was a submarine executive officer, so I am used to being the heavy, used to me saying no. Okay. I have a very thick skin, so I don't think, you can try, but I don't think it's going to work.
Okay. Now, you're aware, since you've lived here a good while, there are a whole lot of capital projects in the works here. We have our stormwater management programs. We have our roads are ongoing, etc. How would you kind of prioritize these capital projects, and any suggestions for a source of funding other than our annual HOA assessment?
I've been involved in the Lakes Management Improvement Plan, also involved in the Main Gate Working Group. I do have some questions about, one, the costs and risks and uncertainties associated with these projects, as well as the perceived benefits. And so I'm always looking to understand what is the full scope of these projects. And I'm inclined to support projects that are quote unquote shovel ready. That basically we're ready to go. The plans are done, the permits are done, all the easements and stuff are done. Let's do it. If it's not shovel ready or if there are questions, the problem will still be there. And there's probably something else that may be more ready to go than this particular project. So that's my brief scope. As far as funding sources, I know there have been working groups trying to identify funding sources. It appears there are only two options left, is to either sell some of the assets of the association. I mean, maybe we may have some property at some location we can sell it to a developer someplace else that if it won't impact our environment, or we have to look at some sort of loan, sort of revolving loan or home equity line, quote unquote, process to basically fund this stuff. But in this environment, interest rates are pretty high for those kind of things. So I am not sure we would really want to do that, but it may get better in the future.
We are, as an association, we have our governing documents, the bylaws or rules and regulation or covenants. What do you know the difference in those different?
I have to tip my hat to Mr. Squally. Put a very informative article in the Lake Currents. And basically, the covenants are essentially the requirements. These are what you can do, what you can't do, and those, what your structure, board structure looks like. Those kind of easily you can't change those unless you get basically a 50% plus one majority of the lot of the members, the lot owners, to agree to that. The bylaws, that's sort of the wiring diagram. Who does what to who? What's the recycle? Things like that. And then the rules and regs are basically it's how we implement the covenant restrictions and everything else. And those can be changed by the board, but they don't get to go willy nilly. They basically have to go through the cycle. We have to study the issue. They have to get comments from members. They have to get comments from other experts to make sure we're not trampling on something or issuing up some of the liability issues. And then after deliberation, they may or may not make the change.
What's your understanding of the role of the board of directors and their relationship with the general manager?
I think it's in the bylaws, but essentially the board hires a GM. So the GM works for the board. And basically the main conduit is the president of the board. He basically is the one who meets with the general manager on a routine basis, I think weekly right now. And he may bring somebody else with him. They communicate. It's an information exchange and maybe some tasking. Never sat in a meeting, so I don't know what the actual exchange is there. But that is how the board officially interacts.
LOA is a non-stock corporation. Can you explain what that means and how it affects our membership?
We're fortunate because we're a stock corporation because it limits our liability. If we were a stock corporation, members having shares, if there was for instance, a lawsuit that basically exceeded the value of our insurance protection, the members would be on the hook for any delta. Right now, if it's just we just basically have members, basically one lot, one member, so essentially, we're only liable up to the value of the insurance. And this is fortunate because you look at their condos down in Florida, where they used to be sort of loosey-goosey on reserve requirements, and essentially the state legislature passed a law that says, now you can't play that game anymore. And now they're looking at six-figure bills, special assessments to basically fund their reserves or whatever else they have.
Well, that's a good segue into the next question that the Elections Committee had come up with. Explain a little bit about our reserve and replacement policy and why that's so important, as you just mentioned.
We have to have a reserve replacement policy that basically funds it basically funds repair and or replacement items that'll wear out that the material that the association owes. And essentially the entire, so it's right now, I think the The fund is somewhere north of 2 to 2.2 million. And that is that's basically a rolling fund that basically keep items that we have to replace on a routine basis. Where like some expected periodicity, 7 years, 10 years, 3 years, depends on the asset class and what's going on and what the remaining life is. If we didn't have that fund, we would have to basically go back to the members every time a big bill came in.
Yeah.
And so it's basically forcing us to basically forward fund all the stuff that's going to go away or basically die at some future date. And if we don't do that, we go downhill fast.
Well,
that's also a state requirement.
Good. As part of our thing as a non-stock. Role of a leader, to be in front of change, not behind the eight ball, if you will. How would you rate Lowe's performance to date, and any suggestions?
Well, I was sort of in the dark, even on the M&E committee. I was sort of in the dark. However, again, Frank, he was quality. He sent me, he forwarded all the candidates a board action item list. And in that, there's like, I think 10 or 11 items that the board is basically goals or things they're trying to accomplish in this particular year. And it's showing the steps, what's happening. And in there are some strategic planning type goals. I think, it's not obvious that's going on, but if you look at this stuff, it is going on. They are thinking out there, what are threats, what are opportunities out in the future, how do we deal with that? So whoever's doing it is doing a good job.
It's good to know. We're always talking about revenue here. How can we get more revenue? But what would you have as suggestion for managing our cost?
I think and based on my discussions with various groups, I think we need to basically relook at the budget process and probably look at, because it's a giant time suck for the staff, it's a time suck for the board and various committees. I don't think everybody's happy with the outputs and the outcome. Some stuff it's basically looks like it's based on some inadequate assumptions, optimistic business cases, or just late data. There's clearly some padding going on in there. And it's like when I'm in discussion with some of the people, repair replacement reserves. The maintenance guys will basically put in a budget. Okay, we got to spend $25,000 to replace this tractor, whatever it's doing, whatever heavy piece of machine. If you talk to the guys on the ground, there's nothing wrong with the tractor. It's just repair replacement reserve says it's 10 years, it's time to replace it. Then why spend the money? We can defer that, and basically, if you do the maintenance, a lot of stuff should last a little much longer than just use your wear and tear. But at the same time, there are other items, they're not going to last so long, especially if we don't do the maintenance that's required, which I've seen some evidence that we're not. So that's where first of all, is basically this tighten up on how we're actually implementing repair, replacement reserve funding and what we're buying. And then the next I would basically try to look at squeezing out basically stuff that's essentially being used as bill of pairs for other high things. Because what I really want to do is educate. I'd like to educate the membership. These are the real costs of some of these amenities. We need to have that discussion. Is the juice worth the squeeze, or else the assessments are going to keep going up?
And none of us want that. Now, if you get elected to the board and you have something that you firmly believe in, and obviously you're going to push for that, but it takes a vote amongst the 7 members of the board for it to pass. The decision is a board decision. But what would you do to try to assure that you can work with and agree to vote with, try to get people to see your point? You need 4 people to get it.
I understand. Yeah. At least you get to have a majority.
Right.
A voting majority. My rationale, get each member region. First off, you have to explain your position to them, and that could be in a simple, what we call a point. Here's what I'm proposing. My idea. These are the pros. These are the cons. This may be a guess on the costs. And these are the next steps. Let's sort of lay out the whole approach. and said, and then I may just say, I said it to the board, I'd like to tee this up for discussion at a future date. And then the president may put it on the agenda. He may not. I don't. He may say, And then what the next step is. All right, I'm going to sound out each member individually. Now I may just call them, may just send them an email, say let's get their fairways, have a cup of coffee or a beer or whatever. Let's discuss this and see what you think. And I'm also looking for feedback. They want to change it. Well, how you want to change it? Well, what's the benefit or what's the pros of that? Well, I don't want to. I don't want to say we're negotiating because they may have some pet rock they want to get on board. But let's see what we can do. And that's sort of the approach. I can't get it all a room because I'm going to have to. It's going to have to this open record law. I'm going to have everybody in. And can't do that. But on onesies, it may take more time. But hey.
One of the things, obviously, Lake of the Woods is challenged with is labor cost and retaining people. What do you think about our labor challenges? We have about, I think, somewhere in the neighborhood of 150 employees and 160.
Somewhere part-time.
Yeah.
Finding good qualified people is a challenge in any environment. Had an industry where somebody's looking for a very specific skill set, and we have several options. We can try to hire people and try to grow them into positions or train them, or we can look at contracting out certain functions that we're having problems filling. I know there are discussions on grounds maintenance that crew is short at least 3 or 4 people, and the M&E director thinks he probably contract that out and get the work done, and maybe it cost a little less, so we wouldn't have these personnel gaps. We'd also get some benefits because a lot of the equipment that's reserved, that's reported on the grounds bin, we could make that go away. So that's some cost inside the repair reserve fund we wouldn't have to fund in the future.
Okay. Last of these questions has to do with our food and beverage operations. We do have a consultant that we've just hired and a membership survey that is actively going on now, and we have hired a new food and beverage director. Any thoughts on our challenges in food and beverage, or what you might like to see happen?
The new food and beverage manager, I have met him. I know he's been on the clubhouse committee extended period of time, but I'm really waiting to see what the study says, and what recommendations they make, and how we would possibly implement them. I worked in college. I worked as a cook in a pizza restaurant. I go to the club every once in a while. I do notice some things, but I'm going to wait for the experts to tell me what they recommend we do.
Well, I think we are all looking forward to what that report shows us. Well, Ben, so lastly, I'm just going to ask you, like an elevator speech, just tell us why someone should vote for you.
I'm an analytical, detailed, data-driven kind of guy. I will, when I'm looking at a decision, I want to take it apart. I want to understand the data underneath it. I want to understand the source of the data. Can we trust the data? And then basically work off from there. I'm very detail-oriented. It's just, I'm also willing to basically, if I don't know anything about it, I'm going to have to do some research and basically get smart on it.
Well, that's where that 30 to 40 hours a week comes in. Well, Ben, I want to wish you luck. Thank you for joining us today and taking a chance to meet our membership. And we'll see where everything ends up in September. Thank you very much.
Thank you.